Grapes are one of the most popular fruits on the planet. They are delicious and offer us numerous health benefits, with green, red and black grapes ranking in the top 10 most popular fruits in the UK today. This enthusiasm spreads back throughout the entirety of human history, as even hunter-gatherers likely enjoyed wild grapes. Grapes were one of the earliest domesticated fruits, cultivated around 6,000 to 8,000 years ago in Southwest Asia during the Neolithic. Since then, grapes have been widely cultivated across all continents, except Antarctica, where they are prized for their fruit, but especially their role in winemaking. Wine has played a central role in many civilizations as a medicine, social lubricant, and mind-altering substance. Hi, I'm Louise, an archaeologist, and in this video, I will explore the oldest grapes in Britain, and they may be a lot older than you think. We often associate grapes and wines with the Romans, who arrived here in 43 CE. But this may not be the case, and the first grapes in Britain are in fact way earlier than this. It starts at Hambledon Hill in Dorset. This is a sprawling hilltop rising 190 metres above the confluence of two rivers, with sweeping views across the landscapes into the neighbouring counties of Wiltshire and Somerset. It's home to one of the largest and best preserved Neolithic complexes in Europe. The Neolithic period marks a shift from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle to settled farming communities, with the introduction of domesticated plants and animals and technological development of pottery making. This first began around 7000 BCE in the Fertile Crescent, eventually spreading and reaching Britain around 4000 BCE, and continued to around 2500 BCE when we transitioned to the Bronze Age. But this was a very long and complicated process that I am just quickly summarising. By around 3300 BC, this Neolithic complex at Hambledon Hill included 2 long barrows, 2 causeway enclosures and multiple outworks. And I'd love to do a full video on it and more Neolithic topics in the future if people are interested, so please let me know and subscribe for more archaeology content. Following realisations that ploughing was badly eroding the remaining earthworks, major excavations began at Hambledon in 1974 under the direction of Roger Mercer, and these continued until 1986. These excavations greatly expanded the complex's known size and recovered many pieces of pottery, flint tools, and animal and human bones. But one of the most surprising discoveries was a Grape Pip and a single piece of mature vine charcoal. It was identified as Vitis vinifera, which is the common grapevine, and the seed is morphologically very similar to the modern specimens of the domesticated. These seeds needed to be radiocarbon dated due to it being even slightly possible this was an intrusive find. For example, a Vitis seed was discovered in the mound of the Hazelton Long Barrow in Gloucestershire, but dating showed it was actually of recent origin. The specimen was therefore sent for radiocarbon dating, along with 2 specimens of emmer wheat from the same pit in the Stapleton outworks. The radiocarbon dates of the 3 specimens showed remarkably good agreement. The Neolithic age of the seed was confirmed, dating to around 3640 to 3340 Cal BC. The vine charcoal was from the main enclosure and appears to have been part of the stem of a mature specimen, and would have been able to support fruit production. It was not dated, but there are radiocarbon dates from other samples in the same context. These include articulating animal bones, which have been dated to 3570 to 3380 BC, and bulk charcoal samples, which have been dated to 3650 to 3390 BC, which makes the charcoal vine fragment and seed pretty much contemporary. But these 2 finds are the earliest known record of this species in Britain. And for the charcoal fragment, the earliest example recorded anywhere in Northern Europe. This results in a lot of questions. Were the grapes native or imported? And was it being cultivated either in its wild or domesticated form? For a species to be classed as native, it has to have been recorded from post-glacial deposits predating Britain becoming an island, so around 10,000 years ago. And these finds are a bit too recent to determine this. But it's possible that the finds just haven't been discovered. However, it is probably more likely that it was imported either as a seed or cuttings from Asia or the Mediterranean. As mentioned, it is believed that grapes were first cultivated in Southwest Asia, but the evidence for cultivation in Europe is rare, making it pretty difficult to decipher what is going on. Some of the earliest examples we have that are discussed in the paper dating the seed include the site of La Pouillade in southern France, and this has seeds from the final Neolithic levels dating to about 7,250 years ago. Most of these seeds are in the overlap zone of the sizes between the wild and domesticated vines, as domesticated ones do tend to be a bit smaller, but they do apparently match the wild vine size a bit more. Also in France, and I do really apologise for my pronunciation, of Popignon and the cave of Barra-Bayadora, seeds have been discovered dating between around 8,000 and 10,000 years ago. These are again identified as wild seeds, but some are in this overlap zone. There has also been Grape Pip impressions found in early Neolithic pottery shards in southern Sweden, and one of these could potentially predate the Hambledon sample by 1,000 years. And finally, grape pollen has also been recovered in Neolithic contexts in Denmark. These don't fully answer the question of how grapes arrived at Hambledon 5,500 years ago, but they do point to an incredibly interesting chronology that should be explored, and there's the nature of contact and exchange across mainland Europe in the Neolithic. As the Hambledon grape is suggested to be domesticated, we can presume that the wood is also domesticated, and this suggests that these grapes may have been grown locally. In this period, the summer temperatures would be up to 2 degrees Celsius warmer, making favourable conditions for growing grapes. However, the soils around it are chalkland, which probably wouldn't have been as ideal. But it is possible that grapes were grown here 5,500 years ago, but the grapes could have also been transported on the vine. Regardless of how the grapes got here, this does sort of conjure images of feasts and drinking wine, which we don't always associate with the Neolithic. However, it's not possible to prove that that is the case at all just from one seed and vine fragment. If anything, it seems that grapes were a rare and exotic specimen in Neolithic Britain, and maybe had some sort of special significance. However, there is Neolithic winemaking elsewhere in the world. In Georgia, there is the earliest known winemaking, dating to 8,000 years ago. Here, earthenware jars containing residual wine compounds were found in 2 sites south of the Georgian capital. Researchers believe this is the oldest example of the domestication of wild-growing grapevines solely for their production of wine. However, in Britain, with our current evidence, it is the Romans who are attributed to bringing winemaking to our shores. People of high status in the Iron Age would sometimes drink wine, but this was imported from Europe, and there isn't evidence of grapes being grown for winemaking before the Roman invasion in 43 CE. The oldest evidence of British wine was made just north of Roman London, where a dump of broken amphora dating to the 1st century CE was discovered in 1947. This dump includes remains of 25 to 30 vessels of a specific type of amphora called a Dressel 224. Analysis of the clay fabric showed that these pieces were made locally, but this style of containers was originally developed in Italy and the Aegean to transport wine. They held 20 to 25 litres, stood at about 1 metre tall, and had a long neck and a pair of elongated handles with a pointed base. It's possible that the wine jars were broken in an accident on the nearby Roman highway. Dating to the 2nd century CE, a Roman vineyard was discovered in Northamptonshire, and it's unlikely to have been unique. In fact, in the 3rd century CE, Emperor Probus said he wanted to encourage the Britanni, which is the people of Britain, to keep vines and make wine. However, we do know that thousands of years before this, grapes had one way or another made themselves to the British Isles. In 2022, researchers created this map showing the earliest evidence of wine pottery assemblages, grape growing and wine making, to sort of show the potential spread of wine. Thank you for watching this video. Has this information surprised you, and what do you think the Neolithic people of Hambledon Hill were doing with grapes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I do have another video on the Neolithic, which is the mysterious prehistory of the site of Avebury. I do have another couple of archaeology videos, but please remember to like and subscribe for more archaeology content, and I'll see you in the next video.